You're listening to Women's Dream Enlightenment, dream decoding, deep discussions, and spiritual stories of self-discovery to inspire your personal enlightened journey. I'm your host, Megan Mary, founder of Women's Dream Analysis. Let's bring in the light. Welcome. Today I have Michelle Murphy. As a business activator and soul mentor, Michelle supports spiritual entrepreneurs on their path of soul expression through their business. Michelle is passionate about the sacred relationship between a business and its owner, knowing that this alignment is paramount to soul growth, success, joy, financial abundance, and service. Thank you so much for being here today, Michelle. I am so honored to have you as my
exciting
guest.
and fun.
Yes. So I have so enjoyed your presence on Insight Timer, and you really inspired me with your meditation tracks and your talks. And I really wanted to have everyone else experience you and share the work that you do in helping people align with their business. I think it's fabulous, and it's really helped me. So
that's awesome.
Thank you. So the first question that I ask everybody is, what does enlightenment mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Enlightenment for me really is, I'm just going to make this really simple, is the pathway to self-love. It's that journey home to love. And I think the journey we go on, if we really practice that self-love and that relationship with self, is the pathway to enlightenment. So I guess the result of enlightenment is finding that deeper, more intimate relationship with self. And that means finding yourself back in that bubble of love that you are. So yes. I think it's all about love. Finding our way back to love. We're learning how to love again.
And loving ourselves, which is part of that whole connection to our higher self.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about the kind of love that is that unconditional, higher level of love that we once knew before we came into a human body, and then kind of had that amnesia experience and forgot that we are that, and how powerful and potent love really is. So yeah, that's the journey home. Yes. And then we find out it was always there anyway, and we've gone on this big journey, but we come back home to self, really, home to self.
Yes, it was there all along.
Yep. The answers are within, that saying, but it is true. It is
be
so
more true. Yeah. Yes. So on your enlightenment journey, let's share with our listeners what your enlightenment journey was like, and if there was a pivotal moment that brought you where you are today to do the wonderful work that you're doing now.
Yeah. So I've kind of always said my story is I don't have a story, because I am just really normal. I didn't have an epiphany. I didn't have this light bulb moment. I didn't have a near-death experience. However, there was that pivotal moment that you talk about when you look back in hindsight. I had lived a life where I really felt in fear all the time. I felt like I was on the sidelines a lot. And I think there was two experiences. One, when I was about 11 years old, where I was on a church camp, and I kind of felt called by this higher power to sort of ask Jesus into my life. And I remember the big fuss they made over me there. And that was put to bed when I was about 20, and I stayed in the church and sort of, studied those doctrines until I was in my early 20s, when I went through divorce. And then I separated from the church for a good 20 years, separated from my spiritual life for about 20 odd years. And when I went to a life coach, and they said, what's the spiritual part of your life like? And I just kind of went, there is none. It was a bit of an eye-opener. But it was even many years after that I was operating a bookkeeping business. And I believe then, looking back, I was in transition. I was bored. I was finding it hard to feel the service in that role anymore. Like I used to think I'm helping people with their books, and because I worked with small businesses, and I was starting to struggle in my home life. I started to drink a bit. And so I was really in that pivotal transition-y phase. And I was at a client's premises doing some bookkeeping, and the receptionist there said, we were having a slow afternoon and chatting, and they said, look, I'm bored. I can't do this anymore. I've got to go and do something. I think I'm going to learn counselling. And I just went, oh yeah, that's nice. I have no clue I wanted to do that because my mum was a counsellor and not following in her footsteps. So I just went, oh, great. Yeah, off you go. But 2 weeks later, this person said, oh, I'm signing up for hypnotherapy. And as I described before, I was a pretty numb person. Like I didn't cry, not even when my children were born. So I was pretty kind of like, bland with my emotions. But when he said that, something weird happened. And I kind of left my desk, went outside and burst into tears. And I thought that response was so weird that I had to listen to it. And so I did listen to it. It wasn't easy because I wasn't the kind of person who would take risks at all. I was very much in lack and scarcity. So leaving my bookkeeping business or any of those things was like high trauma. So to actually even take that first step to answer the call was a big deal. It was a lot of money. I hid that from my husband until the very last moment when I kind of had to share a bit of that. And I did the course. But when I got to the end of the course, I was still little old me with low self-esteem. So I couldn't sort of hang my shingle out and do the work. I thought, oh, hypnotherapy is not enough. I'll do an energy modality on top of that. So I went looking for that, keeping up my bookkeeping business. And I ended up landing in a mystery school where I worked with a guru for 8 years. And it was through those 8 years that I was kind of pulled apart, where I went on that path of love. And when I say pulled apart, we have layers and layers and layers of patterning and the fears and the blocks. And that mystery school and that modality was all about cleaning. We were kind of like the cosmic cleaners, the energy cleaners. So it was like cleaning out the junk for 8 years and softening and dissolving that hard layer that was numbing me, and finding, that love within that was occurring through those 8 years. And then I became ready, and it was still scary as hell, but then I became ready. I was more confident. I had more self-esteem to start the shift. And then maybe another 2 years later, I completely left my job and did this full time for about 7 years now. So yeah, that pivotal moment was that reaction in my body that I stopped and listened for, I don't know, the first time ever to that soul nudge. And so that's, yeah, I mean, it wasn't exciting, wham, bam overnight. But when I look back, there was that me taking a chance on me and doing something that I love, that I now know I love. Yeah.
I love the me taking the chance on me, because who better to take a chance on, right? I mean, you have to. You have to do it. And I also love the cosmic cleansing part, because I think that when you start into this work, you the lights kind of shine and you feel like you've made it, and then you realize that actually there's all this stuff now that's going to start pouring out that you have to deal with. And you really do have to peel back all those layers of the onion to get to that truth at the core, that everything else around you is craftily hiding. I mean, it's very well put there to hide and obscure and distract. So
yes. And I think it's important to note that that bit underneath was never broken, right? We're not broken. We don't need to be fixed per se. We need to get rid of the illusion that we need to be fixed, which was all those layers, which took me a while to learn that too. I was so hyper-focused on cleaning, fixing. Oh, there's another thing. Instead of just, when we allow the light to kind of just keep coming in and dissolving, much easier pathway. But that took me a little, I had to learn.
Yes,
That was an
yes.
easier way.
Of course. I mean, it's a journey. It's not a destination, it's a journey. It's never ending, while we're here anyway, or even
Yeah,
while we're not here. Before we were here, it's all part of the journey.
absolutely. Yeah.
So what role have dreams played in your journey, if at all?
Yeah. I dream a lot, but I don't think, and maybe I need to come to an expert like you. I don't think my dreams are prophetic. I feel like a lot of my dreams are processing. It's processing the data, processing the emotions, and the unconscious stuff that's going on. So I'll have the weirdest and wildest, wackiest, crazy dreams, but they'll be about my fears or about something that's going on. So I do a lot of processing in my dreams. And I will say that I feel that this was something that kind of helped me along the way too, because I can have some sort of very terrifying dreams as well that feel so real. And I remember my teacher once telling me that sometimes when you have enough in the grace bank, that you can clear some of your karma that may have well played out in a real life in your dreams. And so sometimes I believe some of those dreams might be, working out some of that karma. So,
Mhm.
they might be a bit nasty, but I'd rather have it in a dream than in the real life. So I accept that as part of the process as well. But yeah, I haven't delved in a lot, to be honest, into what my dreams mean or what's going on, but I do feel they're very processy, very
Mhm.
processy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very common feeling about dreams, is that, well, I don't know, you try to explain them by seeing the similarities and saying, well, I dreamt of that because I was just at the store and I was doing this and I watched that movie last night and I was just talking about this with so and so. And but you do a lot of things in your daily life and you're not dreaming about all of those things. So I think that your subconscious saves everything, but then it picks certain things and then it puts it together into a little story that is very specific and very supposed to be just for you.
Yeah.
And I think that even probably myself, sometimes I'll just try to explain it away because there's some obviousness that you can put onto it. But once you start really doing the analysis, you realize, oh, right, there's this whole other underlying layer to it.
A nice little agenda that's going
Mm-hmm.
on behind the scenes. Yeah, I do. I agree that it's those unresolved pieces of the puzzle that are wandering around and actually it's another glimpse at it, isn't it? It's another glimpse at that shadow world that is going on underneath, for you to pay attention to. And I'm very much aware of if I wake up. In fact, I did a meditation on it because I would sometimes wake up feeling like I'd been through the mill and wake up and go, oh my God, I'm anxious and frightened or heavy or after that night, and like, gosh, I thought sleep was supposed to be restful and wonderful and restorative. And so I've really learned to kind of acknowledge whatever emotion was going on so that I could sort of dive in a little bit and then do some tapping or releasing of that heaviness that I've woken up with, because yeah, it's not a great way to start the day sometimes. And yeah, that's happened to me more than once.
Yes, I call that the dream hangover because
Yeah, I love that.
you really do feel the residual emotional effects of it. It doesn't go away because as far as your body's concerned, it did happen. As far as your
Yeah,
emotions are concerned, and that part of your mind that processed it, it did happen. And so your logical mind knows it didn't, but when you're dreaming, your logical mind is turned off. And so as far as you're concerned, emotionally, it did.
yeah,
And you're right, you think that its dreams are supposed to be just restful, but restorative can be also an aspect of healing, and healing can also be some darkness, right? Sometimes you got to
yeah,
go through that dark to get to the light. And so yeah, I think that that's obvious. It's part of the package, but I like what you said about applying other modalities afterwards, because I feel that that's really important. I don't want to just expose a latent fear in someone and then say, well, that's what it is. Bye. You really, you have to work it through. You have to have all these other healing modalities to process it, address it, get rid of the dark, bring in the light, and help the analysis align yourself better. You want to energetically align better, and you work with energy, so you would know very well how to help yourself with that, which is fabulous.
Yeah, which is good for me. Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's as simple as getting the awareness, maybe through journaling, which you probably even recommend in your work, is sort of journal what you were feeling at that time. And we don't have to know the full story. It's just what am I left feeling at the end of that? Like, do I feel guilty, or is it relief? Is it fear? Whatever it was, and then sort of tap into what was going on there.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's one of the key pieces of my method is the memory and the mood are two of the 4 parts. And so you remember the dream and you journal it and you remember the mood, and the mood is really the key to the meaning. You can't have the meaning without the mood. And if you can't really remember it, you need to amplify it. You need to try and go back and really amplify that emotion, because the emotion is where that really tells you what it's about.
Yeah. Big stuff.
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing about what you do?
Oh, my favorite thing is really diving into those shadows with somebody else, not so much with me.
Sure.
But diving into those shadows to get to unmask that really core block, that core issue, that I call it like the point of creation and the point of destruction, because it's where you created the pattern or the lie and started to shift away from your authenticity, and the destruction of that authenticity and truth of who you were. So it's that pivotal moment, and actually bringing it into the awareness and then going, oh my gosh, the aha moment in the client's face. And then that freedom that they have a choice now. They can choose to continue to repeat all of that and to live in that belief about themselves, or we can help them shift through that. And that's a very empowered place for them to be in. And it's just like that relief in them, that, oh my God, the shift in paradigm. Love it every time.
Mm-hmm.
Love it, and I think because I lived in fear for so long and still do struggle with fear myself, to help people get out of that fear, because I know how crippling it is. It breaks my heart to see really passionate people stuck behind this wall of, oh, I can't be seen, and it's, and they think there's a block. And yes, there is metaphorically, but literally there isn't, because there is nothing wrong with you. And to see the heartbreak in them, really breaks my heart. So I love to be able to shift that around. Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. What are common misconceptions people have about what you do?
Yeah, that's a hard one, actually. I think one of the misconceptions is, especially with readings, because I do tap into the Akashic records, and I think one of those misconceptions is that I am a clairvoyant, I'm psychic, whilst I'm very intuitive and I do have clairvoyant skills and things, it's not what I'm about. And I am really about that deep dive, deep transformational healing. And I think sometimes people might be the wrong client, really, for me, because they may come to me and I start to unravel and what's going on, and they don't want to go there. They just want to tell me the answer. The answer, that doesn't mean they have to do any work. It's like a magic bullet. And I think sometimes people think that the energy work is just going to be easy and not traumatic, and sometimes it is easy, but other times we have to face ourselves, and we have to undo the things that we have felt have protected us all this time. So I think they sometimes think that I'm going to have the answer to all their issues, that they're not going to have to think about it or do the work. And so not true. Do not come to me, because it will be a deep dive journey where I may have to shatter your paradigms and rebuild you. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest one.
Yep. And I think that we share the same challenges, all of the healing community, because people come and they just want a quick fix, or they just want you to be able to identify something and take it away. And they really, and they don't. And then when you kind of hit on something, you hit on that nerve, you bring up something that does resonate, then it's that moment of, oh yeah, okay, it's that. I don't really want to talk about
I don't
that.
like you anymore.
Yeah. And then, it's the difficulty of shadow work, or any kind of work where you're delving into the self, because all of those things are coming from the subconscious. And so you have to be willing to do that work. You have to be willing to go down that path.
Yes.
Oh, and for our listeners that don't know what the Akashic Records is, if you could just explain that really quickly, since you're the first person to bring it up on the podcast, I want to make sure.
Yeah, love to. So the Akashic Records is a frequency of energy, and there are many books on it, many teachers on it, and this is my personal experience of it and how I work with it. So I'm not poo-pooing anything anybody else does and how they describe it, but it is a frequency of energy that we merge with, which is a high frequency. It's a frequency of love and gratitude. And we merge with that. And within that frequency, we can access every single experience, every relationship, every moment in our soul journey, and in any past moment, potential future moments. And so we can gather that from what they sometimes term a library of information. And within that, we will find out the answers to these patterns, and why we might have this negative reaction to someone when we meet for the first time because we've had an interaction in a past life. All this information, even information about your business, it has its own records, your body, modalities can be downloaded. You can have sessions with ascended masters. It's like infinite potential in the Akashic Records. But the important, I think, distinction between that and perhaps the psychic reading is the psychic readings tend to work on this incarnation and this physical energy body, and what's going on and floating around in your energy body, because all your thoughts and all your beliefs are floating around in your body. So if you're thinking about moving and stressing about that, then it's sitting there in your aura. But the Akashic Records are taking on the whole soul journey, including this lifetime, and seeing where the impact of something in the past is impacting this lifetime. That's the way I work with it anyway. So it's this frequency of energy that when we connect with, it's like a portal into all this information about you. Yeah.
That's a great explanation. Yeah, I've heard the library definition, and I like portal much better, because I feel like it exemplifies what you're going to access, and it's not linear, and it's not restrictive to this 3D world, and it's not something that you can just visualize. It's a whole energy system. So I think
it's great. Not outside of ourselves. So sometimes if I say it's a field of energy, I feel like we're going to put it out there, or if it's a library in the sky, or it's because it's not. It's, if we think of frequency, the frequency of love, the frequency is within us, it's within our cells, it's within the water, it's within the nature. The Akashic Records are everywhere. So it's more about matching the frequency than going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you met somewhere outside of you, sort of thing. Yeah.
And I like thinking about just the practical applications of frequencies many times, because it makes it so much more accessible to people. When you talk about music, for example, it's a frequency. When you talk about radio waves, when you talk about Wi-Fi, when you think of how much frequencies are surrounding us in our daily life that are affecting us, that we may or may not be aware of. And that when you realize that, it doesn't seem so woo or so separate or so intangible, because you go, oh yeah, we are surrounded by waves and electromagnetic waves, and radio
Yeah.
waves and other things all the time. And that's
I mean, it's
perfectly accepted. Mhm.
literally like the internet, you know? I
Yes.
mean, we're tapping into those band waves to find out information. So it's kind
Yep.
of like a different way of doing that. It's just maybe I'll say a higher level.
Yeah.
Don't even want to make that unattainable. It's just a different frequency, but getting the information just the same. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So what if you were to, we talk a lot about getting over fear, and fear is one of the biggest things that stops us from actualizing our purpose, from aligning ourselves with our business, from going out beyond ourselves to do the work that we're called to do, to share our gifts, to realize our gifts. And what are ways that people, what are things that people should stop doing, and what should people start doing in order to get past those hurdles and start down that path of enlightenment?
I think there has to be some work on, we have to stop abandoning ourselves. I think that is perhaps a little bit down the track, but ultimately we have to recognize when we're abandoning ourselves. At some point, we have to start walking that path of self-love, and being aware of all the times we're abandoning ourselves will help us start to create those boundaries that are so important in understanding where you end and the other person ends. And there's such an important distinction when you're able to become aware of that. So that path of self-love has to begin with yeses for you, and starting to really choose you, put yourself first. And that can be so difficult for people who have used a pattern-pleasing personality to support themselves and protect themselves. So it's unraveling of all of that. So stop abandoning yourself, start loving yourself, start putting yourself first, and creating boundaries is really, really the tools that are going to help. And I think what I see with entrepreneurs and what I see with people is that they want everything to be perfect. They want to fix themselves first before they'll get started. And I think it's really a recipe for disaster, because we're never going to fix ourselves. Every time we expand, we're going to hit that wall. So, because if I could describe it like this, with energy coming in, and when we're first connecting, we have this trickle of energy coming in, because it's got to get through all that junk that I was talking about that we have to clear and clean. And it trickles in. It's like a really low voltage bulb in a dark room. And all you can see is this tiny puddle of light on the floor. And when we start to clean up, our light gets brighter. And so it's a 60-watt bulb. And what happens is that puddle of light expands. And so we go, oh my God, I cleaned all of that up. And now I can see the next area to clean. And we get brighter. And, this journey of cleaning and cleansing and cleaning never stops, because we get brighter, we see more. And so stop thinking that you're going to get to this point where you're going to feel confident to start, or you're going to feel good enough to start. I mean, that is really frustrating. What else can I say about that? And the same flavor of that is that, like we've talked about before, is that this perfectionism thing, and the belief that we are never going to feel anxious or nervous when we're trying something new. Like, I was nervous to come on here on the podcast. It's not quite the same format I would use in my live, because I'm in control of that. I'm not in control of this, right? So there was a level of nervousness. So do I never do a podcast or become a guest? Because I don't feel like I've got to a point where I've got that down pat, right? So I see that as well. People believe, oh, you look confident. No, I was freaking nervous before I came on. And so it's that belief that we're not enough right now. So start believing you are good enough right now, and stop waiting. It's like future pacing. We're always future pacing into that. When I am, then I can do it. When I've done this, when I've got this. And start really just going, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try. It takes a hell of a lot of courage. and I applaud you and celebrate you and all of those things along the way. But yeah, I think there's some of the concepts we really have to get our head around.
Yes, those are such valuable advice. You have to just do it and not let all those doubts come in, because they will be there. And as you say in your meditation, they will be there tomorrow. You can just go to sleep and let them go for now, because they'll be there tomorrow. Don't worry. They'll wait for you, but you got to just let them go. And I totally appreciate about being nervous. I appreciate about being a perfectionist. I'm an Enneagram 3 and I'm an introvert, and it's been so much to overcome this. And I normally would have all my ducks in a row and everything would be perfect. And that will never happen.
Yeah.
So I would never do it.
Yeah.
And so getting over that hump has been enormous, but the feedback that I have gotten and the connections that I've made and the realizations and the things that I'm exchanging and that I'm learning far outweigh any doubt or fear or apprehension I may have had. And it's almost like a drug that it keeps getting better and better. And the more I let myself out of that release those doubts and go past the fear, the better it gets. And that has been really rewarding. And I hope everyone else will follow that path as well, and not wait to be what it is you've put on a pedestal.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is we're retraining our nervous system. We're giving our ego, because our ego is this immature ego 9 times out of 10, because we have given it, we've abdicated our responsibility and said, ego, protect me, right? And it's kind of given it the job description of being the operations manager and the CEO at the same time. So it goes, oh, that's hard, let's stop it, right? So we've got to reprogram by taking these little mighty steps and feeling like, hey, that worked that time. Yeah. I can try it again. And we're giving our nervous system new data to work with, because it always works on past data. So yeah, we're retraining our nervous system.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a fabulous journey. Well, what's next for you in your journey?
In my journey, I feel like I've been dabbling around in the online space for a few years, and now I'm just going to consolidate that and just really, like, that is the way forward for me. So I am launching a new course this month, fingers crossed, on how to work with the Akashic Records. So it's interesting that we spoke about that today. And just working out how to work more in a group setting as well as the one-to-one setting, so that I can touch more people, just getting out there with a clear, strong message to really help as many people as I can serve in a bigger, more expansive way.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that sounds very exciting.
Yay.
Where can people find you online if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so I'm on most of the platforms, but I'm most current right at this moment where I'm focusing my attention is on Insight Timer. That's where I do lives once or twice a week. So you can find me there under Michelle Murphy, and I do lives. I have some courses up there already and lots of meditations. And I'm also on Facebook. Carly Devi Energetics is my business name. So you can find me at my website, carlydevienergetics.com, and Instagram, Facebook, and I have a private group in Facebook called Soul Chats. So you're always welcome to come there, where we do some fun Fridays and some masterclasses and fun things there. So I'm on pretty much all of them except LinkedIn.
Ah, yes. Well, great. I will put all of those links in the show notes so everyone can find you. And I really, really appreciate you being here today, overcoming your, everybody has it, and admitting to that just makes everyone else feel more human. We all have it. We all must overcome it. We all must get there to where we need to be so that we can share with everyone else, and so that they can hear what we've gone through and what we've realized and what we have to offer. And that's really what this podcast is about. So I just want to thank you again for reaching outside of that and being here and sharing with us.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share and being a part of your journey. Thanks so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Are you a woman wondering what your dreams mean? Are you seeking enlightenment and wanting to connect with your true purpose and higher self? Check out womensdreamanalysis.com to begin exploring the transformative power of your dreams. If you like this episode, please subscribe. If you'd like to share your self-discovery story, spiritual gifts, or have your dream interpreted on the podcast, please go to dreamenlightenment.com.